listened to your recent podcast you're looking at sort of Jett Lawrence. It was pretty interesting the take you had having, you've done so many of those off-season races, that brutal schedule just to sort of on the grind there. And Jett's obviously had a pretty busy off-season as well, racing Paris, obviously did the Nations and, doing some extra stuff too. So do you reckon that'll have any impact on him? Will he come into the season a bit jaded, maybe a little bit unfresh? So obviously, the effects of burnout can have. So what's your take on firstly Jett and some of the other things you took from those media days?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think the book is necessarily written for Jett in 2024, but it was something that I was concerned with that you mentioned. It's just he didn't seem like he really had any downtime this whole time, and he's arguably the biggest star in the sport right now globally. So everyone wants a piece of his time, and whether that's Honda HRC in Japan for a week, and I'm sure that was a really fun experience, but I feel that all these things, the off-season activities and responsibilities, and he's flying around the world. So from France, he went to France twice. He went to Japan. He was back to California. I'm sure he's back home by now. But these things take a toll. And I'll reference, a quote I heard from, back in the heyday of the Tour de France. There was a guy that was one of the star guys, and they were interviewing his wife and basically saying, you guys live in Girona, just outside Barcelona. Like, what do you guys do in your off season and to have fun and whatever? And she's like, we don't really do anything, because everything that I suggest that we do, my husband always tells me that there's a price to pay for that, right? It's we can't just go walk around Barcelona all day, because that all those steps take a toll on my legs, and then I'm going to pay a price for that on the bicycle. So I relate that to what Jett some of the things he's had to do and some of the things he's chosen to do. But what does that look like when 2024 shows up? Because if you contrast that with like what Chase Sexton has done, what Eli Tomac has done, all they kind of been doing is hanging out and riding and testing, and most importantly, a lot of resting. So, Jett's super young. He's only 20 years old, so that definitely helps his, as far as being able to be resilient in the face of all of that. But he's got to be, and I know he was really burnt out going into, and if you listen to any of the comments that Hunter Lawrence has made over the last few months going into those SMX rounds, they were both really burnt out because they never really got to celebrate these championships. They, for Hunter especially, finally accomplishes this national championship, and then boom, he's got to turn around and be back to 100% and ready to go at Charlotte, when all he wants to do is take a deep breath and celebrate with his family. So I think there is some of that between both of them. They have had so much going on that I just wonder if sometime, and maybe it's not January because there's so much anticipation, it's hard to not be excited for A1. But sometime in February, March, April, if that doesn't set in and they're just like, gosh, man, all I want to do is have a break, when you really kind of need to be peaking. You really need to be super strong down the stretch in those final few races. So I don't know. Maybe he's too young for that to set in yet, but it was certainly something I can tell in both of their demeanors. Like, they were looking for a break. They weren't looking and anticipating and excited for A1. And so it was just something that I left with going, man, I don't know how that's going to set them up. They're both incredibly good, but coming into A1, you want to be itching to go racing, not still wishing you had more time off.